Thanks for joining me today, and I want to show you 3 chords today that you're probably not utilizing to their full potential. And 2 of them I'm pretty sure you already know and already play, but I'm going to show you some neat things that you can do with these chords. So let's dive in. Alright, so the first chord I want to talk about today is the D7th chord, and we probably all know how to play this chord, but we really don't think of all the neat things that we can do with it. For example, just as a starter, this is a movable chord shape, so if we play a D7th here, we move it up 2 frets, we get an E7th, we move it all the way up here to the 8th and the 9th fret, we get an A7th, move it down 2 more, you get a G7th. So it is a neat movable chord that you can, move around the neck. But there's also some other really interesting things that we can do with it, especially when it comes to like blues and rock. So let's come back up here to the 8th and 9th fret where we get an A7th. And you don't want to play all of the strings necessarily, you just kind of want to focus on the 3 that you're holding down. But we can do something interesting with this chord is we can just walk it down and then resolve to an A. So how you would think about this is going to the A7th. So if we want to be in A, we go to the A7th and we can walk this down to an A chord, kind of like a blues turnaround. Or if I wanted to do this in G, I go find where it makes a G7th. And I walk it down and resolve to G. So that's an interesting thing that we can do with it, but you don't have to play it like that all the time. So let's go back up here to A, so we're on the 8th and 9th fret. I don't have to play all of these strings. I can play them, say, individually. I can also think about just playing, say, the G and the E string, although I'm still holding the same shape. I can also just play the G and the B string. So there's lots of interesting combinations that you can do with this D7th kind of walking down. Another lick that gets utilized a lot with this D7th shape, especially when it comes to rock and blues, is this lick. So the beginning of this is this D7th shape. I'm just playing the G and the B string like we did earlier, and I'm sliding into it from 1 fret below. And I'm resolving this by going, just kind of going down that pentatonic scale. In this case it would be 7, 5, and then back to my A chord. So there's lots of different combinations of things that you can do with this D7th chord. Don't think about this D7th chord as just a regular chord that you have to play when you're playing rhythm. You can move this D7th chord around and come up with some neat lead licks as well. Another chord that you're probably not thinking about moving around very much is the C7th chord. So if we just come down here and we make a C, if we put our finger down on the 3rd fret of the G string, we have a C7th shape. Now the C chord, just the regular C chord, isn't necessarily movable very well because we've got this open G string, and if you move it around it doesn't really sound good. But if we put our finger there on the 3rd fret of the G string, now we're holding all the strings almost, and we can move this around kind of anywhere that we want to. So the way you would utilize this C7th is to move it around and not get stuck in these open chord shapes. This is a movable chord that allows you to play kind of anywhere on the neck. And if you're playing lead or you're playing something up the neck, you don't always want to have to jump down here. It's a lot of wasted movement when you can play a C7th chord up here and get the chords that you're looking for. So let's take a for example. Let's say, once again, I'm in the key of A, but like in all of these examples, this works in any key. But let's say I'm in the key of A and I'm playing up here in my minor pentatonic scale. If I want to go to my 4 chord, I can come back down here and I can play a D, but I can take this C7 shape and I can move it up 2 frets, so now I'm on the 3rd fret, and this makes a D7. So it's less movement that I have to go in order to go all the way back to play an open chord. Or likewise, say you're playing in C, so you're up here on the 8th fret playing in your pentatonic shape, and I want to play an F7th. I don't want to have to come all the way back down here. So once again, I was on the 8th fret, I can just move down 2 frets and make this C7th shape, and now I get an F7th because I've moved that C7th shape up to here. Now another thing to keep in mind is that, say you're playing your 4 chord here, your 5th chord, or in this case if we're in C, our G chord, is just 2 frets up. So if I was playing my C bar chord, I go to my 4 chord by playing the C7th shape, down 2 frets. I go back to my C, I can play my G7th right here, and then my 4 chord again, and back to C. So I really never have to leave this spot in order to play all of my chords. The other thing that I use this C7th shape for a lot that you probably should think about incorporating is, let's just stay in C for a minute. When I go to my 4 chord, when I go to this F7th, I don't always just leave it right there. A lot of times I'll slide it in from 1 fret underneath. So that gives a really interesting feel, especially like if you're playing rhythm or playing lead. This just gives kind of an extra little bit of flavor to whatever you're playing. The same thing can be said if you go to your 5 chord, or in this case the G7th, go down to your 4, and back to C. And then we can do our, see how these kind of start connecting together, these little chordal ideas. So I was in C, I went to my 4 chord using my C7 shape, back to my C, my 5th chord, down to my 4 chord, and back to C, and now I'm going to use this D7th shape coming up here to the 11th and 12th fret. That makes my C7, and I can walk this down back to my C shape. So you see these start connecting together, and you can start utilizing all of these into, songs, and even be playing lead inside of them. So another chord that's really handy to know is a 6th chord, and you might not know how to make a 6th chord, but it's really easy to make. So for this example, let's just go to B. So I'm going to be coming up here to my 7th fret, and I'm just going to make a bar chord B. Now you can make an F shape in this same spot. So I'm just going to take the F chord and I'm going to make that right here on the 7th fret, and this makes a B chord as well. It's the same as if you were to play a bar chord. But now I've got my pinky free, and I'm going to put my pinky down on the 9th fret of the B string. And this makes a 6th chord. So in this case it would be a B6. So wherever you would make your bar chord, you just put your pinky down there on the B string, and now you've got a 6th chord. Well, I can take this and I can move it around. So I'm in B6, I can walk it down to an A6, and then I can go and resolve to my 1 chord, which in this case would be E. So if I'm in the chord of E, if I'm in the key of E, when I go to my 5 chord, instead of just playing a normal B, I might come up here and I might play a B6 instead, and just like the C7th shape, this is movable. And that way I can go back to my E chord. And you don't have to strum this as a full chord. Just like with the D7th chord, we can play notes individually. So let's just play the D and the B string. I can walk that down to my E chord. So think about using this B6th instead of your 5 chord, or maybe even instead of your 4 chord. And Johnny Rivers did a lot of this in things like Memphis, Tennessee, where he would E6, A6, then he would even slide up to an E6 and go to a D6, B6, and then finally go back to his E. So he kind of did it as a guitar solo, just strumming that chord and moving it around. So as you can see, all of these things can be connected together. So I really do hope that you utilize these movable chords into your playing, not only in your rhythm, but even into your lead playing, and enjoy them, move them around, experiment around. You can come up with lots of great ideas just inside of these movable chords. So I really do hope this helps, and if there's something else you need, just reach out to me. I'll be glad to help you.